Back pain is very commonplace. And unfortunately, just because your back hurts doesn't mean there's the one thing you need to do. There is a litany of factors that can cause back pain. While the average individual, it's usually posturally related, we work with a lot of athletes. And when it comes to athletics, we get into a lot of what we call extended positions. And the spine works best when it is loaded neutrally. And load doesn't necessarily mean you have to be lifting heavy weight. You could be landing hard like in gymnastics, and that is compressing the spine and putting it under load. So it's not just those who are weightlifting that could be in trouble. Even going up and down stairs is technically loading the spine. So when we talk about positioning, we have to first see that the spine is not completely straight. We have two big things for today's purposes. We have the upper back, the natural curvature known as the kyphotic curve, and then the lower back curvature known as the lordotic curve. So we notice that it tends to kind of arch, whereas the top tends to kind of round. So while your average desk jockey might get a lot of excessive rounding at the upper back from slouching all day, your athlete who's especially training too hard or not getting good coaching is going to wind up being in an overextended position the majority of the time. The problem with that is assuming for a moment that the vertebrae or the discs can take that load, we have in our spine these little pieces right here called your facets, and the facets touch the vertebrae below it. The reason why that's important is this is essentially the body's natural backstop. So when I lean over backwards, I kind of come to a stop. I feel pressure, but my body's not having to activate to hold me there. I'm leaning against the bone. It's like a natural doorstop. So when you open the door, it doesn't punch a hole in the wall, or in this case, you don't snap your back in half. However, you don't want to lean against that doorstop because then it's going to start to damage your wall. Just like if you continuously lean and dump bone into bone and slamming it together, the bone starts to become bruised and then very sensitive. Once the bone is inflamed, the body knows something is wrong, so it just tightens all of the muscles in that area to try to stabilize and protect the back from whatever the heck is going on. And thus, now you start to get extension-sensitive back pain. So if you are standing neutral and you round and you feel like kind of a deep stretch, but it feels pretty good, and then you go to lean back and go, that doesn't feel good. That is extension-sensitive back pain. And so for a lot of athletes, they struggle because they actually are not engaging the core the way they ought to. So if someone is not very well trained up in cueing or coaching that athlete, they'll say, well, we do ab stuff all the time. Their abs are fine. I believe you that you could do some insane ab exercise, but then if you turn around and go to lift overhead like this, where your butt is sticking out, you are dumping into that lumbar spine because the body knows it is easier to not engage the abs and it can still support the load against those bony structures. So when you are thinking of how you're doing your day to day, especially in the instance of going overhead, I need to think about activating that trunk by one, getting my pelvis into the correct position, thinking about making sure my weight is in my heels and tucking my tailbone, like I'm trying to lift my belt buckle into my navel. Step two is making sure that we're bracing adequately. See our bracing video. But as I draw in and bear down, that is forcing my rib cage down rather than allowing my ribs to flare, which is involved in extension. So as I have, say, a weight and I'm trying to go overhead, I want to squeeze my glutes, take my brace, bear down so I'm securing my ribs using my abs, and then I can perform that motion with my trunk staying stable. And as I said, it's not just necessarily under load. I've had clients where they would be hanging for pull-ups, and simply hanging from a bar was enough to trigger their back pain because as they were hanging, they were actually dumping and overextending and not using that. So maybe 2 or 3 pull-ups in, they're going, man, my back is killing me. Like, well, instead of doing more of the bodybuilder pull-up where we have the wide grip, the abs are disassociated, and I'm leaning back to try to isolate the lats, doing more of a gymnastics pull-up and trying to get into the hollow position. So I'm tucking my tailbone, my feet are in front of me. So now instead of doing a pull-up like I've got a big old fish hook in my chest, thinking about activating the abs and pulling in. So now I'm in that hollow position as I do my pull-up. I'm now opening that back space instead of closing down and getting to that overextended position. So not all back pain is created equal, but simply by figuring out, does this hurt or does this hurt, can really start to narrow down how you go about attacking.